Hi, my name is Martin Purnell and welcome to Off-Grid Christianity, a weekly podcast for those who go or don't go to church and where we can meet and hear from those that have made their faith count. This podcast series is to encourage via conversation, and you can contact us as well by email, ogc@accessradio.biz, and biz of course is spelled B-I-Z. This is a special episode as it is the 150th. We celebrated our 100th with two international worship leaders, Noel Richards and Dave Bilbrough, and naturally it was musically biased. To represent the written word for this 150th podcast are two well-known Christian authors, while they are well-known to their families and me. It gives me great pleasure as well to welcome back two previous guests, Andy Chamberlain and Ruth Leigh. And for those who don't know Ruth, first of all, who are you, please?
It's a great question. I am an author, freelance writer and speaker and editor, living in the beautiful Suffolk countryside with 3 children, 1 husband and a cat.
And an international award given to you a few months ago.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yes, and thanks, Martin. And also an international award given to me some months ago for the 4th book in my series of Izzy Smooge novels.
Yes.
Thank you to ACW who gave it to me. Much appreciated.
Very well earned. It's the only one I haven't read yet, just saying.
What?
I know. So, Andy Chamberlain, who are you?
I am a writer, a speaker, conference director, writing conference director with Ruth. I'm a husband, a dad, and a granddad. No pets at the moment.
And how many international awards have you been garnered this year?
I have one less than Ruth. Well, probably several less than Ruth, actually. I have not won an award. I don't have a thing I can show and say, look, here is an award that people gave me. But maybe one day.
Yes, I've got an award medal, if that counts, for my football playing days. Does that count?
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a 25-yard swimming thing all those years ago when I used to swim like a brick. Anyway, enough of the awards. And seriously, congratulations for yours, Ruth. It was well deserved, even if I haven't read the 4th book yet. Let's go for the 5 questions then. We'll start off, if that's okay. Just get a better understanding of you. You've already been on the previous podcast each. That's why I've invited you back again. So 5 slightly different questions. Ruth, you can go for the first answer, that's okay. Beethoven is teletransported to your home and he wants to hear what music is like these days. Obviously, with my teletransportation machine, he's been able to get back his hearing. What concert would you take him to? And you can use a time machine to go back to a gig within the last 60 years. Get me, eh?
Yeah, well, I think I can just about manage this. I would really like to go back to it too, although I was technically alive when this chap was in his prime. He didn't last very long, sadly, a member of the 28 Club, is it? So Jimi Hendrix, I would go to an early Jimi Hendrix gig before the drink and drugs kicked in. So he's really on it, playing the guitar with his teeth and all that kind of thing. Beethoven, I think, would really enjoy it. Being hearing impaired, you know, that sort of bass and drums and the sheer showmanship, I think, would really zhuzh him up. I think we'd both really enjoy it. And I would expect to have a chat backstage with Jimmy, again, pre-drink and drugs, so we can have quite a lucid chat. And I think he and Beethoven would have a really good talk about being leaders in their field. Well, they may seem very different. I think there's quite a lot of similarities, trying new things.
Yeah.
You know, people are still listening to Hendrix now. He burned very briefly but brightly. I'd love to see that, and I think Beethoven would too.
As did his guitar, of course.
Indeed, all his guitars, yeah.
I have to say, I think if you really are going to be pedantic, like I can be at times, I think you'd have to go back to when he was one of the backing musicians for the Isley Brothers.
Okay, good knowledge there.
Thank you. Before the drinks and drugs really kicked in. So, yeah. So you might have to adapt that bit if you really want to talk to him backstage.
I'll do some research before you turn on the machine, don't worry.
Yes, please.
Roughly speaking, we're doing a bit of Hendrix.
Very good answer. Is that with the Jimi Hendrix Experience or subsequent when he kicked him out?
I think the Jimi Hendrix Experience, actually, before the punch-ups on stage, yeah.
What a great drummer he had. Very underrated drummer, can I just say.
Indeed.
Andy.
Yes, sir.
Who would you who would you take Beethoven to, them or her or him?
My day job is working for an orchestra called the Academy of Ancient Music, and we play Beethoven music on instruments which are constructed as they would have been at the time. And we finished our 24-25 season with a program of music which included Beethoven's 5th Symphony. So I would be interested to take him to that concert at the Barbican that we had in June this year and say to him, okay, Beethoven, this is what your music sounds like, and this is our attempt to reproduce it as it would have been heard. What do you think? And then just see what he says.
Well, obviously, he can speak perfect English. I wouldn't mind betting that within the first 2 bars, because I do know the answer to this, I'm just going to show off here my limited knowledge, that he would shout out, "That is in the wrong key." And the question is, why would he say that?
I don't know. Why would he say that? Because I think we'd play it in the right key, but go on.
Well, because around about 1920, 25 or something like that, some bright spark had this great idea to change the megahertz frequencies for the way strings vibrate.
Oh, okay.
So consequently, any Beethoven song piece of music you have, the chances are that the key of A, or whichever key it's going to be in, is in the new megahertz frequency. And that's why people get really annoyed that they say, well, Moonlight Sonata isn't somber enough, it's not sad enough. And then they find out a recording that was recorded in the original megahertz frequency, which is like 2 keys down, and all of a sudden it comes alive. There you go.
Interesting. If my super musical colleagues were here, they could have a big debate with you about that, because I don't know exactly what we do about that. Certainly some of the instruments that we use are older than 1925. They're like 100, 200 years old. Anyway, I'm sure we'd have a good night. I'd take it to the bar as well. We'd have a drink afterwards. It'll be fine.
Here's Liebfrau milk for you. Brilliant. And I wasn't making that up either. That's true.
Oh, I believe it.
I might be wrong about 1925, but it's certainly around about that time. Question 2. If you could go back in time and watch any sporting or entertainment event live with a front row seat, what would it be, please? Andy, you kick off first, please.
Our classic answer, I think the 66 World Cup final. I would have to be there. I hope you were going to say that, Ruth. I hope I haven't stolen
No, I hadn't thought of that.
Right. Possibly just in the front row, looking out on the
Russian linesman.
The German goal, the Russian linesman, so that I can watch this slightly dubious goal go in and cheer and get my own perspective on whether it actually crossed the line or not.
Well, of course it did. What you just said there, that's
heresy.
To the tower with that young man. Send him down. Yeah, exactly. That's a great answer. I think that was my answer as well years ago when I had to do this question. July the 30th. I'll just say hello to a friend of mine, Dave, who's Scottish, and his birthday is July the 30th. He hates that day. I wonder why. Good answer. Thank you. Ruth.
Well, I had to think long and hard about this, but I would go to the theatre in the late Victorian era and I would watch the first night of an Oscar Wilde play. I think probably The Importance of Being Earnest.
Oh.
For 2 reasons. One, because I would love to see it being performed for the first time because it was so witty and groundbreaking. And 2, because Oscar Wilde himself would always be there on first night and he would come on the stage at the end to receive plaudits and do a kind of Victorian Q&A. Now, I would love that. It's such witty stuff. I aspire to such brilliant writing and there isn't nearly enough of it for various reasons. So I would like to be in a late Victorian theatre surrounded by playgoers, which is an era I love anyway, and then actually speak to the great man himself. That would really be a fantastic night for me. I'd love that.
What a great answer. What you don't know is the previous podcast was with Sarah Hall. So if you go back last week, you'll see it would be with Sarah Hall from America. Mm-hmm. The initial question, if you could meet anybody, alive or dead, who would it be? She chose Oscar Wilde.
Oh.
And has in fact named her son Dorian as a result of it. It's an incredible podcast because she then talks about what it's like to be sexually abused as a 13-year-old and then being ostracised by a family and her church in America. Phenomenal podcast.
Always good fun, of course, not to be believed. Super.
Yes, exactly. We learned a lot more about Oscar Wilde. So there you go. It's almost as if we've been working through the night to get this podcast to be as seamless as possible with previous podcasts. Good answer. And of course, every time I hear of the name Oscar Wilde, I keep thinking of the sketch with Monty Python about Oscar Wilde.
Okay.
It's on the Matching Tie and Handkerchief album. Right, moving on. Question 3. If you could invite any biblical character for an evening meal so that you could ask them questions, who would it be? And of course, what would you cook for him or her? Ruth, kick it off, please.
I've decided I'm going to go for Peter, the Apostle. In our youth group at the moment, we're going through Acts and he keeps popping up, obviously. And I just love his character because he speaks first and thinks later. He just leaps in with both feet. And I think he'd just be a really great guy to be around because he doesn't have a filter. I like that. But ends up, of course, being the Rock. So he'd be great company, but I certainly would not be offering him fish. I just don't think that would go down terribly well with his profession. So I'm not even going to crack open a bag of prawn cocktail crisps with his welcome drink. I'm probably going to start off with some olives and nuts. And then I'm thinking a nice soup with some unleavened bread, which he would be familiar with. I make flatbread, which is pretty much the same. I'm known for my flatbreads. And then I think because I would probably have been spending the whole day running around trying to get everything ready and tidying up and all that kind of malarkey, I would have a lovely slow-cooked stew on the go. So the whole house, when he came in, was a smell of stew, which is quite biblical. Plenty of mash and some homegrown vegetables, which, again, I think he wouldn't be too freaked out by because that's probably the kind of thing he would be used to. And then I'd blow his mind by finishing off with an East Anglian cheese board while I fired questions at him.
An East Anglian cheese board, that could be very interesting.
It pops up in the ill-fated dinner party when Claire and Tom come over for dinner, and what's he called, Johnny, doesn't behave very well, and she actually does have an East Anglian cheese board, and she says something about she thought East Anglia was a cultural desert, very rudely, because she hasn't been there very long, but actually she's pleasantly surprised by the sheer amount of excellent cheeses, which is absolutely true. I didn't make that up. East Anglia is known for its excellent cheeses.
Good friend of mine, Helen, if you're listening, hello, Helen. I doubt it very much if you are, but if you are, hello. She's a big historian now and writing the current book about what happened 2,000 years ago in Roman times. So she, a couple of weeks ago, did a pop-up restaurant serving what she thought would be a proper food from Italy 2,000 years ago. And she used feta cheese and stuff like that. And flatbreads, which I make as well.
Yes, easy to make.
Especially if you make your homemade beer and a cider, which I do. So all the residue, all the yeast and stuff, I then make that into flatbreads.
Do you? I don't usually. So I'm making chicken soup tonight, actually. The chicken's having a third outing, and that will be served with flatbreads.
Very nice. Thank you. Andy, sorry about this culinary cuisine conversation. Feel free to join in.
Well, I will now, yeah. So I think my biblical character would be Elijah. I wouldn't quite say in awe of Elijah, but I do appreciate his reactions, his humanity, the triumph of taking on the priests of Baal and then kind of freaking out afterwards. So I think I'd have a mental health journey conversation with him to explore what it felt like for him at the different stages in his career as a prophet and the highs and lows of it. I would be fascinated to hear more detail from his point of view of how that works. In terms of what I'd give him to eat, definitely something kosher, obviously. Probably a very sensible bit of lamb would be in order. To drink, if I could tempt him, actually, in a kind of bizarre combo with my fellow guest here, some of Mr. Leigh's best beer, which I can tell you, and I can tell whoever's listening to this, is just fantastic. Suffolk's finest, and that's a high bar. I don't know whether Elijah could be tempted by that, but that obviously, some kind of raisin fruitcake for afterwards seems very in keeping with the story. So some of that as well for dessert. He'll eat well. I mean, he's going to eat really well with Ruth. Well, Peter is going to eat really well with Ruth, but Elijah as well will be all right. There'll be plenty of it, whatever. So that would be my person. Those would be the kind of things I'd serve him.
That's very good. I have to say, Mr. Leigh, I need to meet him one day and we'll have a beer match. Who can make the finest beer?
He'd love that. He knows all about beer.
Next year then, when we celebrate the 200th, hopefully my private jet will be here so I can actually fly over and do it personally.
Yeah, you'll get a good meal. Nick is an excellent cook.
Sorted. Of course, the other thing is, you're talking about Elijah and you want to go kosher. You see, the thing is, there could be some theological people listening out there saying, oh, can't you introduce him to the new covenant as opposed to the old covenant and eat a bacon butty in front of him?
I'm not sure I would do that.
Radical.
Not because I'm averse to a bacon butty myself, but if I want to elicit some real conversation out of Elijah about some things that have happened in his life which are a little bit difficult,
yes,
I wouldn't want to put further obstacles in his way. I'd like to create a space where he can talk as comfortably and honestly about what all of that was like for him.
See, you're too nice. That's very good. Question 4. I'm going to look forward to these answers. What do you remember most about your wedding day and why? Go on then, Andy. Kick us off first, sir.
Well, a small detail, but at the end of my wedding day, my dad slightly randomly gave me 30 quid. And I remember it was 30 quid. And this was like 35 years ago. So it wasn't just buy you a couple of cappuccinos and a bun and that's it. And I thought, why is he giving me this? Anyway, he gave me this money. So I put it in my pocket. And when I went off with Ruth on holiday, not this Ruth, my Ruth, another Ruth.
Phew! Scandal alert.
Other Ruths are available.
No, different Ruth.
We've had that gag a few times, haven't we? I forgot to bring my wallet, so I didn't have any money with me when I went away. We were staying in the UK, apart from this £30. So we weren't completely bereft. I mean, Ruth had some money, but we weren't completely bereft. But I was very glad of the £30.
Yeah.
You know, I think there was some divine providence there, probably.
Those white £5 notes really came in handy, didn't they?
They did. Ye olde fivers, yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Oh, that's a good answer. Thank you. Go then, Ruth. The other Ruth.
Okay, well, mine would be the weather because we decided to get married in the middle of October 32 years ago. And for the 3 weeks beforehand, it rained non-stop. I mean, we're talking torrential, pouring down rain for 3 weeks. And I had just about resigned myself to the fact that it was going to be one of those weddings. And people were saying all those sort of jolly things like, oh, well, you know, the bride who is rained on will be happy forever, which was just made up, but was supposed to make you feel better about life. And I was very chilled out. I was never a bridezilla. So I was like, well, if it rains, it rains. Yeah, you know, it's just one of those things. But where we were getting married, where we come from, is Epping Forest. And the tradition if you got married at the Baptist church where I was, or indeed St Mary's over the green, was that the bridal party would always troop over to the green, and everybody in Thaden who gets married has a picture of everybody standing on the village green, smiling charmingly. But of course we couldn't do that because you'd have sunk up to your ankles in mud. So the photographer had seen all this before, and on the day, it was a beautiful, crisp, very cold October day with beautiful blue skies. It was lovely, but cold, but dry. So he said, right, okay, we'll all go out. So we stood outside the church and we all trooped back in again. And then he said, right, off to the forest, which again was the traditional thing. Every bride, would pretty much be taken off to the forest where she would perch on a fallen tree and look radiant. So off I go in my ivory silk gown, and we trot into the forest, and he gets out his bag of kit and says, right, you better put these on. And he handed me a pair of what looked like blue plastic bags, which I put over my shoes. So Nick and I waded our way through the forest, which was extremely moist. And then I don't know what I sat on, but he put something down. And in the picture, I look amazing. He's backlit me and it's all radiant and beautiful. But the truth was that my feet were encased in blue plastic bags. I was sitting on something to keep my gown from being ruined. And poor Mr. Leigh was absolutely desperate for the loo. So he has a slightly sort of alarmed look in his eye. If you look closely, he's smiling, but he's like, how much longer is this going to go on for? And then when we came back, it was fine because we were indoors. But it was just that whole thing of, oh, well, it's going to be pouring with rain and I'll be under an umbrella. And then all of a sudden I wasn't, but then I had to think about bags on my shoes. So there's quite a lot of that going on, really, weather-wise.
One of the greatest albums of all time. And it's by Genesis, especially if you're into your prog like I am. Yes, they do a track called Battle of Epping Forest. Next time I play that track, all I'm going to be thinking about are these blue shoes and your husband want to go to the toilet.
Yeah.
What do you consider to be your personal favourite film of all time? I'll accept the top 3. Off you go then, Ruth.
Oh, that was hard. I've got so many. Okay, so I went with 3. All About Eve, which I think is an absolute masterpiece and contains some cracking lines. Fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Loads and loads of great stuff. He met me in passing. It's full of good stuff. So it's the story of a fading actress and the woman who pretends to be her friend, but is really trying to take over. It's got a very small part for Marilyn Monroe. It's got George Sanders. It's a great black and white film, full of witty dialogue and brilliant acting. I just love it.
I saw it about 6 months ago. I had to hire it because everyone's been going on about it. Who's the other actress in it?
It's Bette Davis, who's brilliant, of course, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. She's just amazing. You can put the award where your heart should be. It's just, I could quote huge amounts from it. And then another one which I absolutely love is Breaking Away, which came out in about 1976, which nothing much happens in it. It's just about these 4 boys in, where are they?
Epping Forest.
Indiana, that's where they are. And they've just left school and they're all sort of diddling about. They haven't got much to do. And one of them is a very keen cyclist. That's what he's really good at. So he discovers that he can take part in the Indiana 500, which is a real cycle race. So he goes in for it, and it's funny, it's sweet, it's touching. I think it won an Oscar. It's absolutely delightful. It's got some amazing classical music in it, Italian opera music in it, like Puccini. Very funny and very sweet. And then finally, Little Miss Sunshine, which is rather sweary, but again, I just adore it. It's brilliant. It's a family, a very strange family who live, not that strange, they live in New Mexico or somewhere like that, Albuquerque. And the daughter, who's about 8 or 9, hears that she's in the final of the beauty pageant, Little Miss Sunshine, but it's over on the other side of the country. So they have to drive from one side of the country to the other, and there's all sorts of stuff going wrong with them. They have to take the brother with them because he's suicidal. They've got the foul-mouthed coke-taking grandfather who's been thrown out of his retirement home for naughty behaviour. You've got the son who won't speak. They're a right old messy, and they have to drive across America in this old van that keeps going wrong. And it's really lovely because they aren't great when you meet them. They're not particularly nice people, but they get better slowly. And it's just a classic film. Just love it.
Oh, wonderful.
So good. So a bit sweary, but so heartwarming.
Wow. Well, I've seen one of the 3. Did interview somebody yonks ago, and she was obviously from America, but also from Indiana. And she's saying how much she loved her soul music and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So I said, oh, well, Indiana wants me, but I can't go back there. And that was like,
oh, dear.
I had to explain it. I had to explain how great Ardeen Taylor was and that he was the first artist on the Tamara Motown record label to have a single release as a white person.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, he was a songwriter part of the Tamara Motown team, and he was able to release Indiana Wants Me. Got to see Jane, of course. Let's forget this podcast now. Just go and play those 2 tracks very loudly. Yeah. Andy, off you go, good sir.
I had to have a little bit of a think about it, but probably not that much. I went for 2 films, both of which I think, for me, they suit my taste, but they're amazing. The first would be Aliens. So the second film in the Alien franchise, James Cameron directing, Sigourney Weaver, a fantastic cast, brilliant story. I mean, as a writer, I appreciate good stories. This film has a brilliant story. Character development is really good. There's lots of action. The ending is extremely satisfying. Just a classic, absolute classic. Certainly the best of the Alien franchise and one of the finest films ever made, I would say.
Excellent.
My second choice would be The Incredibles. So the first Incredibles film, which, again, the genius of Pixar, the kind of emotional understanding that the people who made that film have, the way in which they show the pressures in a family, but a family that is actually of people who love each other, coping with the fact that they're all incredible. They're all superheroes. Yeah. And how does that work? Even the kids are superheroes. They've got superpowers. How does that work? Yeah. Again, fantastic story. Just everything about it superbly made. So I would recommend those two. Aliens Certificate 18. So
was it?
Not for the faint-hearted. It was.
Okay.
Not so much for the language, but some of the kind of don't all just sit around drinking tea. Let's put it like that. Fantastic films. I would recommend them to anyone.
I saw Aliens when it came out at the cinema. I always remember it to this day, whereby if you splay your fingers like that on a table and then you get a knife and you try and go through each finger.
Yes.
When you sit on Aliens, it's like, wow, I wish I could do that.
Yeah, I suspect they might have sped the film up slightly. Possibly. But yeah, that is a classic scene, the knife scene.
Yeah.
But it works within the context of the film. So as a connoisseur of story, I'm looking at it and thinking, yeah, that does work. Those characters would do that. It would happen. I believe it.
And just to help people out, if they want to see it, we're not saying there are any aliens in it. We don't want to give a plot spoiler alert for it at all.
Well, it's in the title, I think.
Well, it might mean something else.
Aliens, question mark.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it. There are definitely aliens.
Great stuff. Okay, thanks for those answers. We get a better understanding who you guys are as well. And because this is the 150th, if you listen to the 100th, you'll find out that we talk about other things as well. So let's go for it here, if that's okay with you two guys. And I did send you the questions in advance, so it gives you time to percolate through your brain cells any decent answers, or maybe not decent answers. Let's see how you get on. So it's just something nice and easy to bring ourselves forward into the rest of the podcast. And I got a feeling I know what one of the answers is. Who do you think is the greatest fictional character of all time? Andy, before we get to Ruth, because we know what she'll say. Andy, what's the answer, please?
As you know, Martin, you and I had a brief email exchange about this. I will confess now to Ruth as much as anything else. I did put two characters down, one of whom is an Austen character.
Really?
So I might out her. I don't know whether these are the very best characters, but they are two superb characters. I'm going to go with the other one first. So sticking with my science fiction preferences, there's a character called Luthen Rail in the Star Wars series Andor. Andor itself is fantastic.
Apparently so.
Series. It just is a substantial notch above a lot of other sort of Star Wars content that's been produced recently. You can tell it was made by somebody who really understands how to make television, how to tell stories, how to develop characters. The character is a man who's witnessed such brutality that he completely changes his outlook on life. He's prepared to sacrifice everything of himself to oppose the forces that created the brutality that he's seen. Just an amazing character. Amazing. My second character was Emma.
Oh,
yes. What I loved about Emma was, I was looking at the notes that I wrote down when I was thinking about her, and I wrote, a girl sharpened as iron is sharpened by iron, by those around her, especially those who love her. So I think as an example of a character well drawn who starts, Ruth could tell you much more about Emma than I can, but she starts as quite an immature character in many ways, and her circumstances sharpen her and mature her. And there's one particular instance where a casual and stupid thing she says comes back to haunt her, actually teaches her a lesson. And it's a hard lesson for her, but it's a good lesson because she is a better person for it. And the person who teaches her that lesson primarily is somebody who is very fond of her and has a lot of affection for her. I just think that's a really clever moment in the book. As I said, Ruth would know much more about that book than I do. But as a connoisseur of characters, I saw that and thought, yes, that's a masterful touch by Jane Austen.
Wonderful. As a lead in, for those that don't know who Ruth Leigh is, I always remember you sending me an email yonks ago, Ruth, where you were obviously responding to me, but you wrote it in the style of Jane Austen. And it was,
I did, didn't I?
It was brilliant. Didn't understand a word of it. Of course, Jane Austen then went on with her mate William Morris to form the Austen Morris car that we now drive.
She did, yes, that's right. She really has been responsible for a lot of our modern life,
Hasn't she?
Amazing woman. Very handy with a spanner, I understand.
Please don't let me down. If there was going to be one answer that you could put your mortgage on, it'd be this. Who do you think is the greatest fictional character of all time? Ruth Leigh, tell us more, please.
Well, Martin Punner, why don't you tell me who you think I think it is?
Oh dear. It's going to be one of those, isn't it? It's either going to be Emma or it's going to be Colin, who he played in Pride and Prejudice. One of the two characters from Pride and Prejudice. It's one of those.
You've really hedged your bets there, haven't you? Yes, it is definitely one of those. Well done. That's very generic.
Thank you.
I've gone for Elizabeth Bennet, as probably everybody else would. But that said, the caveat is, although I do think that, she's just incredible. I think most people would say that, and there's a really good reason for it. I spend a great deal of my time researching and reading around the Austen canon and reading in fact, writing other ways of looking at that perfect novel. And while she is all of the things that everyone loves her for, and I love her for, she's brave, she's courageous, she's got a great sense of humour, she's very loyal, she's loads of fun to be with, but she's thoughtful and reflective, and she's capable of change. She's a good person. We like her a lot. But there's a lot there that, as a modern reader, we don't appreciate. So everyone cheers when she turns down Mr. Collins' awful, clunky proposal and says, wow, well done you, what a feisty gal you are. But actually, she's doing an incredibly dangerous, and some might say stupid thing, because he's quite right what he says. You may never have another offer made to you. No, that's right. Yes, she's pretty and lively, but she hasn't got any money and she's not a good catch. And who's she ever going to meet buried in a Hertfordshire market town? He is a good catch. Say what we will about him. He's a respectable man with a okay fortune, a nice house. And yes, he's got Lady Catherine up his sleeve, but one day she'll die and he will be left with plenty of money. So actually, although we see that as a good thing, saying no to a man you don't love, to an 18th century reader, there'd be a subtly different reading. It's like, really? Gosh, and then she turns down Darcy as well. Again, why not just say, oh yeah, all right, go on then, feel free to insult me, but then I get Pemberley, which most people would do. So I think it's her integrity that I like. All of that said, my second favourite character is in the same novel, and Austen just doesn't have the time to develop her as she would probably have liked to have done. And that's Charlotte, who does marry Mr. Collins, who I think is one of the most interesting, complex characters in literature, because she makes a great deal out of very little. No fortune, no beauty, no connections, also stuck just outside a small Hertfordshire town. Everyone's convinced that she's never going to marry, and she's already almost an old maid, and she makes a leap, a terrifying leap, knowing what she's getting herself into, but makes the most of it. And again, I've written on that. So I've got a lot of admiration for Charlotte.
Great answer.
Thank you.
People listening now will say, do you know what? I've never read the book. I'm going to read it. Or they're going to go on to BBC iPlayer and watch Colin Firth do the job.
You know what else they could do, Martin? And I hesitate to drop this into conversation, but the other thing they could do, once they've done all those things, they could think,
I know what they could do.
Andy, why don't you tell them what they could do?
I know what they could do.
Turn it into a board game.
They could go, you know what? I love Jane Austen, and I've read some Jane Austen, but I really wish I knew more about some of the peripheral characters, some of the characters on the edge of the story. I wonder if anyone's written anything which sympathetically and knowledgeably and appropriately explores those characters and brings out their stories. Ruth, do you think anyone's ever done that?
A collection of 9 short stories, perhaps published in 2023.
A great deal.
Ingenuity by, oh, hang on, it's by me.
It's by you, Ruth.
Yes, I wrote it. So I did.
A great deal of ingenuity.
Yes.
Remind me to read that book eventually.
You know I will.
Sorry, Martin, we just hijacked your podcast.
There's nothing like free advertising, and that was very good.
It's not our first time.
For a week, as they say.
Well, let's see how you get on this one. Thank you for that. I still prefer the idea of a Jane Austen board game. That'd be good.
There is a Jane Austen board game.
Is there?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and Jane Austen Top Trumps. Could you play that? That'd be.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
come on, you've really hit on something there.
Jane Austen Top Trumps. That's just waiting to be done, isn't it? That is brilliant.
Well, there you go. I'll ask you next week how you're getting on with it. Mr. 10% me. So, in the Christian sphere, who would be the greatest Christian fictional character of all time, do you think? Ruth, kick us off.
Yeah, again, that was quite a tough one, but I think I'm going to have to go with Aslan, actually.
Very good.
Now, the reason for that is, again, everyone will say, oh, yeah, children's books, blah, 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 lovely, cuddly line. Actually, no. If you shine a light on the Narnia books from a literary point of view. They are overtly Christian, I would say. Well, they certainly have a very strong Christian ethos, and yet everybody has read them, everybody knows them. They don't put off people who feel, oh, I don't want to be preached at. People read them to their children, people watch them. And Aslan is such a believable character that it's remarkable that I think 7-year-old me started reading those books. I can't remember how I started, but I immediately was drawn to this character because he is just what he should be. You know, he's tender and loving, but he's also quite frightening. You know, he's not a tame lion. That's what someone says, isn't he? He's not a tame lion, and you're never quite sure what's going to happen. And yet he can somehow sit at the heart of a series of children's books, which can also be enjoyed by adults. I mean, I reread them at least once every 2 years and enjoy them just as much, if not more. I've just finished actually going through them again. So to have someone, a character who represents Jesus, God, who is so successful in literature, I think that's an incredible coup by the author. And I would definitely say Aslan, because he teaches you something.
And he called the lion Aslan because the Turkish word for lion is Aslan.
Did not know that. You are such a nerd, and I mean that.
Thank you.
As a huge compliment. No, it's a huge compliment coming from me.
Thank you. I take that because he was involved in the First World War, obviously, C.S. Lewis. So
Dardanelles, yeah, of course.
Dardanelles. Name me a country beginning with T that's near the Dardanelles. Oh, Turkey.
That'll be Turkey, yeah, that's right.
Maybe he saw a lion going across the beach or something. And
how interesting.
I don't know that bit, but anyway.
I know that.
And I live in C.S. Lewis country as well, so. Northern. Andy, sir.
Actually, my character is from the same mythos, same world. I've picked Edmund.
No.
I have, which may seem like an unusual pick, but what I like about Edmund is he is not really a likable character. This sounds like a paradox. Certainly at the start, he's not particularly likable, and he does go on a journey, essentially kind of from fall to redemption in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. And I find him very understandable and believable in that sense, in that, ironically enough, the Turkish delight, it's that turkey thing again, comes in, doesn't it? He is tempted by the Turkish delight, as are we all in our own way by our whatever our version of Turkish delight seems to be. And his character degrades for a while, but he comes back from that. And I think it's just a little story arc within the whole thing, but it's a very important one, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think he's fantastic. I've always really enjoyed reading him too, and the way he develops through the books. And then you've got a kind of mirror image with Eustace, who isn't quite as bad. He says, you know, you were a fool, but I was a traitor, he says to him.
Yes. So it's interesting how the characters develop and how they interact with each other.
Well, I think what you need to do in time for next week then, if I develop the Top Trumps game, you can now do one whereby Elizabeth Bennet walks through a wood one day and bumps into Edmund or something like that, and we'll see what happens.
A mashup. And honestly, listen, it's true that we did not speak about these questions. I had no idea what Andy's answers were going to be. That honestly is completely random.
William Hill and all those people are looking into it as we speak, for all the bets have been placed. And we'll see. How difficult is it to write for a predominantly Christian market then, as you guys obviously do? Smaller base for selling books, I would have thought. How difficult is it?
Well, not that hard, I would say, because I'm so used to writing Christian freelance. I'm already in the groove, as it were. You know, I've been doing that since 2008, and obviously they frown on swearing and sex. I'm just joking. Obviously, you don't put that stuff in, but I was already trained to write for a Christian market. But when it comes to fiction, my publisher's house rules forbid brand names and swearing. So I have to be really creative. I've made up loads of brands for Izzy Smooge, which are all completely fictional.
Yes.
Yeah, I have. I mean, Stacks and Stacks.
You have, yeah.
You know, Scrummy Mummy and Plant No More Pillows, all that stuff, you know. And every time I write a new novel, which I am doing at the moment, I send it over. There's always all this yellow stuff saying, are these real? Can you make absolutely sure no one else has called them? You know, because there's so many of them. But the real challenge for me, especially in book 1, Leanne Bloomfield swears like a drunken sailor, obviously. And I think would call a spade an effing spade. So I really have to think about how I present her, because in my first draft, I spelt out what she was saying. And they said, no, you can't say that. I said, well, I can't say F. She said, no, you absolutely can't. I was like, but no. So all that got crossed out. So I had to find a creative but believable way, because she does speak in the way that she would speak. So what I've discovered is that if she's got something to say that's a bit rude, like she's on Tinder in book 4, which obviously I don't call Tinder, and she quite often breaks off just before a rude word as somebody appears, or she implies that she's about to say something a little bit rude. And I've had to find creative ways for her to insult people she hates on the playground. And again, that's been good, I think. So that's helped me a lot, I think, with writing for the Christmas market, but getting quite a salty character across, because what I don't want is to have kind of one note, hideously sort of Christian washed dialogue going on.
Yeah.
People spot that stuff and mile off and go, I'm not reading that.
Yeah.
No one talks like that. So that's, I think, because I'm writing contemporary fiction and humour, the challenge is to write it in a way that is acceptable, but also to write it in a way that is authentic and believable.
And of course, I would love to buy the film rights to Izzy Smooge, because if anyone would have to play a part, it's like, Leanne, what a joy that would be to play. Not a big part, certainly Oscar winning if they play it correctly.
I think so, yes. We have to find the right person for that.
Yeah. Andy, sir.
I would say it can be difficult to write for Christians. And the reason I find it difficult is because I want to write what I feel I want to write. And it's not that I feel particularly predisposed to go, oh, I'm going to have lots of swearing now, or look at all this outrageous sex or whatever. It's more, I slightly want to push back against even the concept of what should you or should you not write for Christians. A little bit, I think. But I don't write overtly Christian material. That's not what I'm doing at the moment. So in a sense, it's slightly easier for me. And I'm comfortable. I just write what I want to write. Mm-hmm. And just occasionally there's something which I think potentially in the world I'm writing and in the story I'm writing, this thing would happen or this thing would be said, but I'm not going to have that thing happen or have that thing said at this point. So sometimes I feel probably appropriately a little constrained, only slightly. Most of the time with what I'm writing, and I'm like, it's fine. I'm going to write my thing and it's going to be fine.
So from my musical background, and as you're most probably aware, some listeners are aware as well, I was heavily involved in the late 1990s, early noughties in a contemporary Christian music format, Crossrooms Radio, which I thought was groundbreaking. And at the time, there were so many bands coming out of the UK and in particular America, where they didn't say God in every third word or Jesus this and, you know, the only way to be saved. There's some really good lyrics. Like the C.S. Lewis lyrics were coming out, and the music, some of the bands were fantastic. And here's me as someone, if you look at my albums and CDs and stuff, that's my life. I've got very few Christian albums because music is so important to me. On the very first day I joined UCB in 1994, I was asked by the program controller something, and I said, well, I've got to tell you now, I can't stand Christian music. I think it's rubbish. And she looked around at me and said, don't worry, dear, you'll get used to it. And it's true. But then all of a sudden we had this breakthrough about 1996, 1997 with DC Talk and other bands from America, where at long last the non-Christian side of the music business, your Sonys and these people, were buying up Christian record labels because they saw a market there. They smelt the money. And all of a sudden the money was being thrown at these little record labels, and they were able to go into the studios and get the finest people. In fact, only 2 or 3 years ago, because I love hi-fi, I was in a hi-fi shop and I said to the chap, listen to this. And it was the second track on the Stephen Curtis Chapman album, Signs of Life. He was so impressed, non-Christian, he had to go and download it straight away. That's how good the music quality was. And I was so pleased. So with that in mind then, what about crossovers that can appeal to both markets from a lyrical, literal background? I
would nominate Mrs. Leigh's Isabella M. Smooge as something that's, I don't know whether you'd accept the phrase crossover, Ruth.
Yeah, I would, absolutely. Yeah.
Because I know this sounds like we're patting each other on the back, but I mean, I would never, ever normally read the genre that Ruth writes in when she writes that material, but I've read it, and not out of politeness or anything, but because it's just great fun. Anyone could read it. Anyone of any persuasion. There are subtle and, over the course of the books, slightly more overt Christian themes in it. But I would maintain that anyone can read and enjoy that series. Sorry to just put you on the spot there, Ruth. But
no, thank you. That's very kind. I didn't realise I was writing crossover when I wrote it, but my desire was always not to write the kind of book that would only appeal to a small section of our world, I suppose. Not, that's other people's talent. I don't think it's mine. I wanted something that showed Christians and the church to be flawed, but basically trying to do the right thing. It had to be Christian. I was asked this question last week, funnily enough. I went back to my old firm, Mathis and Squire in London. They now occupy the Shard, so they've gone up in the world a lot since I left. Yes, I know. And there I was giving a talk to their book club, and somebody did ask me, who isn't a Christian, about the faith element and why I did it. And it's really simple, because I made her up for a Christian blog, And then I was spotted by a Christian literary agent, and naturally he pitched me to a Christian publishing house. Of course, it was going to be faith-based. I just really loved the idea of writing it from the point of view of somebody on the outside of all that, because most of my readers are looking at the church from the outside. You know, they may have views on it or not, but they don't feel uncomfortable because Isabella is just as baffled by what goes on inside as they would be. And I think that's why you can call it crossover. And I think one of the best things about writing them, which I hadn't seen coming, is the number of people that say to me, I can give your books to any of my friends and family who don't have a faith and they'll be fine with it. They'll really enjoy them.
Well, it's like C.S. Lewis, isn't it? You and I, we could wax lyrical about all the characters, especially in The Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe. And yet that has a universal appeal. That maybe one day people will put two and two together and think, oh, wait a minute, I remember that from my Sunday school. Oh, wait a minute. And, you know, they'll then want to know more about the faith element of it. And for me, in the music side, that's why I loved CCM, as it was called, Contemporary Christian Music, so much, because there were things in there that you could maybe drag out. But now, when I listen to the music, it seems as if the record labels are going, right, you have to mention God every third or fourth word. It all has to be praise and worship. And that the idea of a CCM rock band is null and void. That's just my feelings on it. The constraints then of a Christian writer, how difficult is that to sort of say, no, I want to get as many people to read it, or maybe not?
Great writing. I don't think Christian writers should go out consciously to think, I must write something Christian, I must write something. Instead, think, I must write something really good. I must write something that's really enjoyable or challenging or well written. So create something really well. It's like any art form in a way. Do your best and create something that is really good, would be my encouragement. So I would honestly be saying to Christian writers, and, you know, Ruth and I come into contact with a lot of Christian writers through our conference that we run. Don't worry too much about how Christian your stuff is, or whether it's Christian enough or any of that. Just write something really well. You know, learn how to write well and learn how to market what you're writing well as well.
Yeah, definitely.
See, in the 90s and noughties, basically in America, in order to even make a living, you had to do like a 200, 300 date tour as a band just to get some money in. Is there such a thing as being a full-time Christian writer these days where you can say, that's what I'm doing and I don't have to worry about going out to work?
Well, I'm a full-time writer and I'm a Christian and I worry all the time. You know, I'm constantly slaving away, just trying to make some money. It's hard. It's really hard.
There's a small number of people who are famous, is a horrible word. They have profile and they write and they make money from writing, and they probably make enough money from writing. I mean, I'm talking about Christians now. Some of those will be writing overtly Christian material. Some of them will be writing in other genres. So they are Christians, but their material isn't overtly Christian. They would be in the minority, I would say. Most Christian writers, as would be the case for most writers, full stop, generally, I would say, are probably making small amounts of money out of their writing, or they're treating it as a hobby, or maybe it's kind of part of a portfolio of stuff that they're doing. It might cover like a day a week of their money, or 2 days a week, or something like that.
Well, a couple of podcasts ago, we had the privilege of interviewing Malcolm Down of Malcolm Down Publishing. And he eventually opens up to show just how many millions he doesn't make from the publishing world, really.
Yes.
Yes.
It's like a very small segment, I would have thought, within the big publishing world.
You say that, Martin, and you are mostly right. But a thought came when you were talking about how in the music business, the sort of big secular music organizations started to put money into music,
Yeah.
I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. I was at the launch of a Christian imprint, so a part of a big publishing house. One of the big 5 publishing houses has launched an imprint, so a little publishing house within the big publishing house, to publish Christian books. I mean, this is Penguin Random House, so one of the biggest publishers in the world. They're investing in and committing to publishing Christian books because they've seen a growth in faith, they've seen a growth of interest in faith, and they've recognized that there will therefore be a market for Christian books.
Oh.
That's real. That has launched. There are people looking, there's a commissioning editor who's working to find new titles. And these people would not be doing this if they didn't think that there was something happening and that there's an interest now in that area.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm sure they're going to be interested in this podcast. And the latest book that they'll be releasing, of course, is When Edmund Met Elizabeth Bennet.
That's
well,
right.
indeed, yes.
Yeah.
That crossover with a free pack of top trumps thrown in. Or something.
Now we're there.
That's mad.
There we yeah. Oh, fantastic.
But that's interesting you say that, because I think we've probably both mentioned individually, Andy and I are both members of Resolute Books, which is a small press which publishes our works. And we all write in completely different genres. And we're not a Christian small press, although most of us have a Christian faith, not all of us. But the deal is that we don't use overt bad language, no occult, no overt sex and swearing, gratuitous, I suppose would be the word. We have a Christian worldview, but we write in a very different way. And people really like those books. Historical fiction, memoir, Cold War fiction, poetry, there's loads of stuff, science fiction, there's a lot in there, and Christians and non-Christians buy it. In fact, they don't even really think about it, because we don't say, all Resolute Books, we're all Christians. We do the very best we can. We write the highest possible standard, and we apply very high standards to our work.
10, 15 years ago, because I still watch a lot of films, when you look at the top 10 gross films of the particular year, Hollywood still doesn't get it that the biggest films of all time are films that are not, in our day, X-rated or 18 or even 15. It's the universal films. It's, okay, PG, maybe 12, 13, whatever. It's those where the families feel safe and they make the most money. Yet, no.
Yeah.
We have to do these films. It's a bit ironic. I suppose that's the same way in the reading terms as well.
Yeah, probably.
It's the quality of it that matters, Martin. It's the quality of what you produce. And I think great stories, great characters, great settings will always attract people. A well-told story will always attract people. And that's something, it's a whole separate topic, which we probably can't go into now, but Hollywood struggles to understand how stories really work. Mm-hmm. And for us or any writer, and certainly for Christian writers, it's incumbent on us to understand how to do our best in terms of writing and creating good characters and creating compelling situations in our work. And if we can do that, then we will be successful. We will sell our stuff.
Well, that was leading on to the next question. How can you get that break and end up selling millions of copies? Like, in Christian terms, The Shack and my favourite book, This Present Darkness, which, can I just say, the first 70, 80 pages, I wanted to give up. And then after you got over the first 70, 80 pages, whoosh, off you went. And went on a journey and then some, and the sequel was just as good as well. How can you and I, although I have no intention of writing a book, how can I get that break and end up sending millions?
Well, when you find out, we'd love to know. We really would. All I can say to you is, I think, quoting somebody who I can't remember who said it, but it's absolutely true. The harder I work, the luckier I get.
Gary Player.
There you go. Thank you.
In golf, he said it.
I knew you know the answer. So, yeah, you have to work your bum off, and I am currently.
Oh, are you allowed to say that word?
Bum? Yes, you are.
Okay, just want to make sure.
I've said it 3 times now. So I told you I had to be creative. I think I managed to sneak a few of those into... I did, actually. In fact, can I tell you a humorous anecdote, which we won't make it into the podcast?
Yeah, please.
One of the questions I most often am asked when I'm doing a talk afterwards is, do your children read your books? And the answer is no, of course they don't. Don't be ridiculous. The school that my children all went to has 2 copies because they've been read to death in the school library, because I go and do a lot of speaking there. My middle one was at 6th form, and he said, oh, yeah, I want to talk about your books, Mum. It's so embarrassing. I said, well, they are in the school library. You could go and have a look. And all right. So I picked him up. He looked rather offended. I said, are you all right? He went, oh, he said, honestly, I went in the library to find your first book, and I opened it up. Honestly, Mother, filth like that in my school library. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you said bum on the first page. I was like, okay.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry. Yeah, that was funny. Anyway, where were we? Yeah, so you just got to work hard, really, really hard, because you don't know the reality of life. Trying to make a living as a writer is quite often, when other Christian writers are happily tucked up in their beds, fast asleepy guys, I am humping tables and boxes in some freezing cold muddy churchyard or outside a village hall, getting myself set up however I feel, sitting myself down behind my display, and Andy has seen me do this many, many times, and switching on Ruth Leigh Writes, who is me. But if I'm having a rough time, or I've had a hideous week, or I'm thinking, why am I doing this? Am I ever going to make it? There might just be that one person who works through the door, and I have a conversation, and they go away and they say, oh, do you know what? She'd be great for whatever. You just don't know. I do lots of things that other writers don't do, and I can't do them forever. So I really hope the good Lord is listening to this podcast and thinking, do you know what? I really should just release something for Ruth soon.
Yeah.
That'd be all right. Maybe this year would be good, just for example.
The film rights, for instance.
That'll be fine.
Available now.
Available now, yes.
There's another amusing phrase which I think sums it up well, Martin, which is the famous writer who says, I've worked for 20 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah, that's a good line.
And it's true for a lot of people. I would say to the aspiring writers, don't worry, forget about This Present Darkness and The Shack and forget all the stories about wonderful young things that write something and it's a brilliant immediately. Forget all that. That's great for them. But decide what you want to write, what you feel in your heart you want to write, and work towards it. In the way that Ruth has just explained. Work on it, work on the craft, practice, meet with other writers, come to our conference, meet with the community, get trained up, get some insights, and keep writing. It's not magic in a way. It's like a lot of other things. You practice it, you get better. And you think about it and work on it, and you get better. And that's the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely right. I agree with that.
Number of times you read about bands who've thrown a song away, think it's rubbish, and at the last minute they put it on as a filler on the album, and it becomes their greatest thing they've ever done. So it's the same thing in book writing, really, I would have thought. You can just keep going and persevere, and you can be that overnight success after 20 years of waiting.
Absolutely. I'm ready for it.
Ruth has had her 20 years, I think.
No, 4 years. But my time of life, that's like 20 years.
I'm interested in this bit, how you deal with it, because before I became a radio presenter, I was a training officer. The things I enjoyed doing the most was training people how to overcome objections. So how do you deal with criticism, especially if the complaint is based on a theological interpretation / denominational point? How do you deal with it?
Doesn't really come up for me very much. Occasionally I'll write an article for Premiere, and sometimes that might be a little bit controversial. Lots of Christians come in the comments huffing and puffing and saying how terrible it all is. That doesn't really happen very much. But if it does, I would say I would obviously pray before I wrote the article. I would think carefully about what I was saying and the scripture I was quoting. And if my conscience was clear, I would just let them. That's fine. If you want to disagree with me vehemently or say I'm wrong, okay, that's your right. That's freelance. With fiction, if someone complained, I mean, the closest I've come to it is somebody got a bit cross and said, oh, yes, it's all very good, but when's she going to be converted? Okay, I think you've missed a point there, but okay. If someone says something on a review or says something to me that's not very nice or very critical, I'm just going to use it in the next book. Simple as that. I always said when I started out, if I get a great review, that's brilliant. If I get a terrible review, I will simply use it as part of my toolkit. So someone says, they haven't yet, someone says this woman can't write for toffee. What an appalling piece of work, The Diary of Isabella M. Smooges. I will never read her works again. I'll be a little bit, oh, okay. But I would then repurpose that, slightly reword it, and have Isabella getting a review like that. So, for example, Sophie Neville, who's part of our Resolute Books, very graciously gave me a selection of her old school report, which had a fantastic paragraph in it about what she should do to become a better member of the school. And with her permission, I'm going to repurpose that. Isabella is going to find an old school report saying Isabella should do this. So I see it as a kind of recycling thing. Someone takes the time to be horrid to you, then fine. Using it takes the sting out of it.
Oh, fantastic. Andy?
Similar to Ruth, I'd say, if I'm going to write anything that's vaguely theological, I will be careful how I write it on the basis that it's going to be incredibly easy for somebody somewhere to pick holes in it, somebody somewhere to object. And they might be right. You know, I might write something, I might just kind of have a bad day and say, well, of course, there's 4 persons in the Trinity, isn't there, or something. And somebody might come along and go, oh, I don't think your maths is quite right there. So I'm being open to what people might say. I mean, some people are ranty and incoherent, and I would just say, God bless you, from a distance and move on.
Very good.
If somebody is making more of a coherent point and I can understand what they're saying, then I might think about it. But in the end, it's not worth it. You know, you do a bit of due diligence and then you kind of move on from it, really. Ruth's point about you can use this material, this is what writers do. I mean, for those who aren't a writer, that I could tell you, this is what we're like. Magpies. We collect things. We collect people's mannerisms. We collect the little things they do, the little things they say, funny situations. We hoard these things and then we use them again at an opportune moment. And we kind of don't really apologize for it. It doesn't mean we identify who the person is, but we will use things like that. And, you know, somebody being ranty could, once you've duly reflected, and I mean that seriously, duly reflect on what they said, there might be something that you can use in your work in the future.
I always remember the billboards, as we call them now. Was it the late 70s, where Mr. Adams had brought out the 4th book on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Was it Richard Adams?
Douglas
Adams.
Douglas
Thank
Adams,
you.
yeah.
Douglas Adams. I was going to say Donald Adams, but he was a singer for Gilbert and Sullivan. But I'm showing my age again. And the billboard said, Douglas Adams, the fourth book in the trilogy. I thought it was great.
That's a great line. That really made me laugh as well. Love that, man. Vividly. I love those books. Absolutely love them.
It was a great line. Thank you so much for that. What plans have you got literary-wise for 2026? Ruth?
I am on chapter 3 of my 5th Isabella M. Smoot book, which will be published next year. Hooray. I have completely written the follow-up to A Great Deal of Ingenuity, which is my Pride and Prejudice short stories, My Own Darling Child, doing the edits on that, and I'm pitching that out for agents and publishers soon. So that's next year. And I can also feel a Christmas anthology coming on with my fellow Resolute authors, which will be coming out Christmas next year. And I'll have a story in that called Christmas at Longbourn.
Longbourn being what?
Being the ancestral home in Pride and Prejudice. That's where the Bennets live.
Did you not know that, Martin?
Martin needs to do a little bit of research on Austen before next meet, I think. If only there was some way of finding an easy and quick way to do that.
I wonder how you could do that.
You knew, but there we go.
The thing is, if you watch Pride and Prejudice, the BBC version with Colin Firth and Thingamajig.
Jennifer Ely.
Yes, I always had a problem saying her surname.
Ely, apparently, yeah.
Jennifer, she was brilliant in that.
Oh, yeah.
Very good. Filmed at Chatsworth House.
No.
Wasn't it?
No.
Oh, careful, Martin.
No.
You're on.
Where was it filmed?
It was filmed in a number of locations, but Chatsworth wasn't one of them.
Not the lake scene?
No. That's not Chatsworth. That's up in Leicestershire, I think. I do know. I can find out easily enough.
Oh, okay.
Lots and lots of different, but Chatsworth is specifically mentioned in the novel, but Pemberley isn't Chatsworth, so it would have been completely wrong because everyone knows Chatsworth. But I think in the 2006 film, of which I am not a fan, they did use Chatsworth, which was, in my view, the wrong thing to do. Just my view.
Oh, well, thank you. So I can do my link in there, yeah.
Pleasure.
Okay, which was my grandma and granddad. They met at Chatsworth.
Did they? I do love Chatsworth. It's a great place.
Yes, they were servant and servantess.
Oh, nice.
And he's worked his way up the ladder.
That's quite a story.
Andy, sir, what are you doing 2026?
Having just published the second book in my Centauri Sequence series, I am beginning work on the third book. I maybe will get that out next year. I think it would probably be pushing it since I'm pretty much at the start of that, just sketching out the plot and the characters and so on at the moment. But that's my literary plan for next year. Ruth and I will also be running the British Christian Writers Conference again in September of next year. So Christian authors listening to this, or anybody aspiring or feeling called to write, look up the British Christian Writers Conference. Join us in Cambridge next September for that conference. We'll be gathering. There'll be about 80 or 100 of us. We'll have a great time.
Wow.
Beginning of September.
Yeah.
I owe an apology, Andy, because I haven't bought your film rights yet for your Centauri series. That's the thing.
That's right.
I'm just thinking from a financial point of view.
First.
Yeah, but from a financial point of view, it's going to cost a lot of money to do yours, isn't it? Because it's more sci-fi. Whereas Ruth, we could just film it in a day, really, in a school.
Mine is more budget than Ruth.
Yeah.
I don't need special effects.
No, you don't.
That incident in Izzy's back garden, the infamous incident, that might be we could call that a special effect, couldn't we?
Oi, smug!
Boy, smug. Get it. Yeah, he doesn't know about the exploding you-know-what, does he? But that has been coming for a while.
I need to read book 4.
Been brewing for a while.
Coming to a library near you, book 4.
Yes.
Yeah, you know how to do it, Martin. You managed to get your hands on the other 3. Easy peasy. Couldn't be easier.
Thank you.
And number 4 is award-winning, you know.
Well, this is it. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing time. The time's just flown.
You're welcome.
Have a great Christmas.
And you.
Super. Thanks so much, Martin. Lovely to see you.
Cheers, Martin. Bye-bye.
Cheers. God bless.
Bye.
And if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. It means a lot to us. Thank you very much indeed. Next time on Off-Grid Christianity.
There is a third here, which is you can't make fun of people at work. You'll be fired. So all coaches and all managers of all sports now have to be ever so careful about creating environments where there's any form of banter, quotes banter, so any kind of mockery, mickey taking by manager or people who work for the manager is unacceptable. Sometimes people talk about wokeism, of course, and it's negativity. But like everything else, so-called woke has its strengths and weaknesses. And the strength is, if you have faith in Christ, people can't mock that. They can't mock it if you're Muslim. They can't mock if you're gay, if you're trans. It's culturally, socially, morally unacceptable in postmodern culture. You're free to be what you are, what you want to be. But one strength in there, one of them, is that as a Christian, you're not going to get bullied or mocked.
So please join me and special guest, former professional footballer and now General Director of Christians in Sport, Dr. Graham Daniels. Wow, what a podcast. Until then, cheerio.